Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and I'm very glad to be with you again. We broadcast on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, and my own YouTube channel. And again, on most nights when we are not recording, to be perfectly transparent, we are recording this session ahead of time. You can just check on this link, and it'll allow you to make your comments, and we'll know who you are. But tonight, we are not going to be doing that because we are recording this and the previous session. We have a very wonderful guest, somebody I'm very pleased to be acquainted with and be familiar with her work, etc. You know, frankly, I think that this town would be a lot lesser of an artistic haven were it not for Kathy Randels. So I'm going to bring her into the room right now and let her explain to you her new show that we're going to be talking about. It's again The Road to Damascus. It's really not a new show, is it? You actually have already done this show, so this is really the second, or is it the third iteration? I know you were going to be doing it on the road somewhere as well, weren't you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Alan. It's an honor to be on your show. And I feel similarly that the New Orleans theater scene would be sorely lacking if it were not for you keeping us all in the loop and communicating
and the checks in the mail. Okay.
It's the truth, Paul. Alan, you really kept it going, especially over the COVID. You really kept us connected to each other. So
that was the intent. And if I succeeded, then fantastic. So again, as I managed to tell you, this is The Road to Damascus, and The Road to Damascus, interestingly enough, you know, I did a little search on it, is the name of an August Strindberg work that, and I know that pleases you, and also makes you a little funny because you had done work with August Strindberg previously. You were very familiar with him as a playwright. So maybe that's August coming back and saying, aha, Kathy, there you go. I'm not sure.
And I have to tell you and our listenership that I have not read Mr. Strindberg's version of The Road to Damascus.
Okay.
But I am very pleased to be bringing back my version of The Road to Damascus, our version. It is, yes, this is actually our second time presenting it in New Orleans and to anyone in the world. We did our first weekend sharing of it over Katrina weekend of 2022. And we're bringing it back to the same venue. We were one of the first theater companies to do a piece at a new exciting theater in town called the New Marigny Theater. It is an old Catholic church. It was the Annunciation Church on the corner of Mandeville and Murray in the 8th Ward. And an amazing man, Julian Mutter, who is the man who runs Doer Furniture in the Marigny. He has done an incredible job of renovating this space and turning it into a state-of-the-art performing arts center. So we're very blessed to be one of the first theater productions that have happened there. There have been music, there's going to be film, there's going to be everything going there. But this
you do a lot of stuff in this, though. I mean, it's like a performance piece, it's a play, it's music, and I believe your husband's involved with the sound design on this as well, correct?
Actually, no, we've got a new sound designer. This is our first time working with a gentleman named Steve Gilliland, who has been in New Orleans for about 4 years now. And
so it's been a while. I apologize. Yeah. So but the sound is very. The sound is also some music things that are in there too, right? I mean, it's not just sound design with certain things that accentuate, but I mean, there's music in there too. So
that's right. Yeah, Steve plays guitar, piano, ocarina. And he also does some amazing things with sound design on his computer. He runs it all live during the show, and it's really beautiful. So yeah.
Well, okay, and this is a personal piece for you, very much like some of the other things you've done. It involves sort of a journey, and you know, The Road to Damascus is a literal journey in terms of where you are at the beginning and where you end up. And I think any of the audience who did not get to see the first production may be, questioning what does Damascus have to do with Kathy Randels, and I'm going to be showing some pictures in a little bit. There's a lot of books, a lot of what essentially are theological books, prayer books that are brought out later on, and I wanted maybe you can give us an overview as to what does the road to Damascus mean to you, and in terms of what is the output of what you're trying to do here. I mean, what are you trying to say essentially? In just a few words. Okay.
Right. It's always so hard, but it's such a challenge, but I'm ready for it. So the road to Damascus is, and excuse me, y'all, I'm sitting outside, so you might hear the plane overhead, but it's such a beautiful spring day in February in New Orleans. The road to Damascus refers to an event for Catholics, they call him St. Paul. For Baptists, we call him Paul. He's the man who wrote half of the New Testament in the Bible. So, the first half are the Gospels by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then the second half are letters by several people, but primarily they are letters by a man named Paul to churches that he started all around the Middle East. And before he was, as I like to say, Joe Christian, Paul's name was Saul, and he was Jewish. And he worked for kind of, I guess, I don't know if it would have been the Sanhedrin or the Jewish state, but he was a bit of a bureaucrat. Mm-hmm. And his job was to find the dangerous Christian preachers out there and order the stonings. So
now let me ask you a question. This is how long after the crucifixion, etc. I mean, because you mentioned he was Jewish. They all were Jewish, and Jesus was Jewish too. So when you start to talk about Christian, I have to question about when did they become quote unquote Christian, because the Gospels, as I appreciate it, weren't written until sometime after all of that came about, right? I mean, it took some years before they were all codified. Is that correct?
Yes. And I must say, I'm a preacher's daughter, not a preacher. So I have not been to the seminary. So this is a very lay version of the interpretation of the scriptures that I'm putting out there. But anyway, the story of the road to Damascus happens in the book of Acts. And Saul has participated or has ordered the stoning of a man named Stephen. Stephen preaches like a sermon that takes up like a whole book and a half in the book of Acts. And he's on his way. He is on the road to Damascus to find more Christians to stone. And he is blinded by a great light. And the great light is the voice of Jesus. And Jesus says, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? And Saul is then blind for 3 days and 3 nights. He goes to Damascus. He goes where the voice tells him to go. It's a man named Ananias. The voice also tells Ananias that he needs to cure Saul of his blindness. And Ananias says, oh, hell no, that man's going to kill me if he comes anywhere near me. Please don't make me do it. But he does. And then Saul converts to Christianity, and he becomes kind of a preacher along with Peter, one of the disciples of Christ. Now that's the story.
That's the background. That's before we even get to you and your story. Okay.
Now I gotta tell one
prequel. All right, let's.
That's why I'm like, wow, telling this in one sentence is hard. Okay, that's story number 1. This is so weird because on StreamYard you're backwards. Anyway, story number 2 is Little Red Riding Hood and grandmother and the huntsman and the wolf. And for that part of the story, so the piece is called The Road to Damascus as Told by Grandmother to Little Red. Right. Grandmother is a woman who has been incarcerated for decades. and Little Red is her granddaughter who comes to talk to her and learn from her. Um, and her granddaughter has had, um, let's say, has had a sexual encounter with the huntsman in the woods, and she has been abandoned by the huntsman. And so she is kind of reeling from this abandonment and trying to figure out life and her own sexuality and her own role in the world and what the woods are, and what this world that she has landed in is. And grandmother is really kind of breaking down the system that they live in for Little Red.
And grandma also is a pivotal figure. Excuse me, because you all also talk about her wrongful imprisonment, if you will, right? I mean, we talk about that. Okay, so now we're going to focus a little bit as well. Grandmother focuses this on to people who have been wrongfully convicted and serving sentences for things that they might not have done. You know, obviously that's, or maybe have done. I mean, I guess there might be some questions about that too, as to whether or not she really was guilty or not guilty or what have you. But it's the system, et cetera, that you're dealing with, I think, rather than guilt or innocence, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also dealing with the notion that the piece looks a lot at the idea of the cycle or the roles that we all find ourselves in relationship to harm. So are we victims? Sometimes we are victims, sometimes we are perpetrators, and sometimes we are saviors, both for ourselves and with one another. So the piece, and I play all of the parts, and that is intentional because it's really, on some levels, it's a deep examination of oneself in relationship to the notion of harm and healing, crime and punishment, and then it's also looking at how our society deals with those issues and challenging our society around our the piece is challenging the criminal legal system in the United States of America, but especially in the state of Louisiana. And the reason that I am so deeply invested in challenging our system is that I've taught theater in the system. I've taught theater to women at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women since 1996. And so I have really been in many ways, the Little Red character who has met with many women, many elders who I do see as being wrongfully imprisoned. Even if they did what they did, I feel that the punishment, the way that we treat all of the people who have caused harm or been harmed by the system is not, it ain't right. Mm-hmm. We're not doing it right. And it also gets into the inequity, the racial inequity of that system. And I would say that so I am a Southern Baptist preacher's daughter who landed in the theater. And so I like to say that I'm kind of combining my Baptist church upbringing with my prison upbringing, because they've been equally lengthy and equally impactful on my life. And there's a real conundrum between the two, because what I and several progressive Christians and even Baptists are starting to look at right now is the role that the white Christian church has played in the creation of the racism in all of our systems in the United States of America. But this piece is in particular looking at the racism and the inequitable treatment in the criminal legal system in our country, and how basically the white folks in power in our country have used the Bible and Christianity to sanctify our criminal legal system. And that
brings up, again, here you are with a picture of you carrying those heavy books. And
That's,
again,
those are my father's books from his preaching library that I
and
inherited when he passed.
at one point, I mean, you almost seem kind of angry there. You know, it's
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, interesting. I mean, and at one point, in order to be able to navigate this sea of books, you know, you have to kind of like go through a circuitous route to be on stage, because there's so many stacks of books that are there.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, those are your father's books. I know you had to borrow a few of them, right, from somebody else too, right? They're
They
not
are.
all his books. Are they
Oh
all his
no,
books?
those are all James Richard Randels, the first books
Oh
from
my
his preaching.
goodness
No,
gracious!
that's a lie. That's a lie. They were all in his preaching library. Some of them are actually my grandparents,
Oh my goodness!
because my mother's father was also a Baptist preacher, and
Oh,
my
two
father's
generations.
parents had a religious bookstore in their house. It was called the Baptist Book Nook in Buffalo, Oklahoma.
As I noted earlier, you know, we always have a little something we bring into the room, a little libation of some sort. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. I had a rough day today, so I'm having a beer. Yeah, and I know you probably brought something as well. I'm not quite sure what that is.
This, can you read it or is it backwards?
It says Freedom Plan. No, I can read it exactly. Freedom
Yeah,
Plan's 10 years of movement building, and this is beyond the bars. So I'm not quite sure. Is that,
yeah,
does that mean it's water?
it is water.
Okay.
It is water.
I'm assuming as a good Baptist, you wouldn't be talking about all your alcohol anyway. Isn't that the story about you know, the Jews don't
Southern
recognize the
Baptist.
Pope, right, and all that, and the Protestants don't recognize the Pope as infallible, and the Baptists don't recognize each other in the liquor store. That's, I think, the way it went.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Anyway, so all I can tell you is, this is a show. Please, let's go over the dates now, so people know, because this is only going to be one weekend, and you only do it one weekend at a time. Tell me why that you don't do it more often. Huh?
Well, it has a lot to do with the team surrounding the piece, and our schedules and our availability.
So you can only come together at certain times, and then you have to come apart. Like, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, maybe next time when you decide to do this again, you can say, let's commit for longer than 1 week. You know.
Yes, we will try. Yeah, our director is a woman named Odile Del Giudice, and she is. She travels a lot, and but we've got her in town for this time, and also for this round, the intention of the piece is actually not to perform it in theaters, but to perform it in churches, and very specifically, we want to perform it in white churches, because just to really land on the intention of it, I'm really interested in opening up a conversation with white Christians of looking at our complicity in the creation of this system, and not just to end there, but to say, so if our theology, if the practice of our theology has made this system in which we throw our people away, because that's what our system does. We lock them up and we throw away the key, and we try not to think about them anymore, no matter if they've done right or wrong. And even if they have done wrong, what was the reason behind whatever harm was committed? You know, I would say, of all the women that I have met at Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women, I would say that every single one of them was a victim of some form of crime, and in many ways, a victim of sexual violence and sexual trauma. And unfortunately, largely in childhood, and even more unfortunately, largely from within their own families. So, you know, there's a bill that's going up before our state law this session. It's called Justice for Criminalized Survivors, and I really love the language of that, because that's what it is. It's criminalized survivors of violent sexual trauma, and there's a phrase that goes around a lot among incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people, which is hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would offer that our system, rather than being a healer of people who have been hurt, our system piles more hurt on top of people who have both been hurt and continued to cause hurt. And that's because the trauma hasn't been healed in the first place.
I think that, yeah, our system here in Louisiana in particular, you know, we are, or have been, I think maybe for about a year there, we had passed the baton to Oklahoma. But I think we've taken it back again, that we are the most incarcerated state in all of the United States. And the United States is the most incarcerated country. So we here in Louisiana have a ignoble title, as you will, of probably the place where most of our people, percentage-wise, are locked up.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying certainly, you know, bears more than just a grain of truth, and certainly something for us to consider, that perhaps maybe it's not that it's in the water, or perhaps it's not that we have a lot of people who are running around here who have some sort of bad intent, you know, since their genetic material, you know, was conceived, I guess, but that it really is more an outgrowth of the way that people have been treated, the way that they've been victimized, et cetera, and that perhaps, yes, they are guilty of certain things, but why did they have to resort to that? And again, the legal system is probably the last resort of where you're going to find help. I mean, you know, they're not helping each other by throwing them into a 9 by 12 cell. It's certainly not helping. So you know, we have to understand where you're coming from. I mean, I know somebody who also works within the system, or has worked for almost 30 years, working with the mental health of the victims, if you will, but also the people who are criminal. And there are people who really richly deserve to be in prison. And I don't know that you're trying to speak to the whole, you know, but that there are some people there who obviously, you know, may have fallen through the cracks and may have needed a second chance to redeem themselves. So, you know, I'm not quite sure if all of them were the victims of what you're talking about, but I would definitely give an opportunity for people to consider the fact that maybe that what you're saying bears more than just a little bit of what we would call the essence, the truth. So, in any event, you know, I did promise you that we go a half an hour, and we're getting close to the end. So I'd like just, if you would please, you know, let everybody know. Again, the date, the time, and everything one more time. Let's recap that. So
beautiful. And just before I do that, I just want to say, so my intention with sharing this with churches specifically is to invite folks to really look at the role churches have played in the creation of the system, but not to end there, but to take it the step further and say, what role, because churches, you know, on some level they're dying, but on some level they're as strong as ever, and they're faith communities that come together for a reason to practice their faith. So what I've really learned from my church, which is the St. Charles Avenue Baptist Church and the St. Charles Center for Faith and Action, is this idea of reimagining our criminal legal system and what is possible if communities of faith, whether they're Christian churches or not, come together and think, because we're talking about deeply spiritual issues and spiritual healing. And what if we come together and can reimagine how we treat people who harm and have harmed? So, all right, I won't say any more about that. I'm just going to say when and where it is. It is March 3rd through 5th.
Right.
New Marigny Theater, and we're starting early, y'all. It starts at 6 p.m.
6 o'clock.
So come early. And donations, our suggested donation is $20, but there's also a pay what you can option. So no one will be turned away for lack of funds. And we also would highly encourage any of you who are able to spend more than 20 to go ahead on and if you appreciate the work, to show that appreciation through your donation.
How good a friend are you of the minister Elizabeth over at
she's my pastor. She is my pastor. She is my
so
she has been with the journey of creating this piece. She has been an incredible support and inspiration. And yeah, if she was on this call, she could give you the theology and all of the stuff, that those questions you were asking me at the beginning that I cannot answer.
Well, that's right. Look, the reason I mention that is for the last 2 years, I lead my 10 Commandments hike for the Boy Scouts, and we go to all the different churches along Carrollton and St. Charles Avenue. And for the last 2 years, she's kind of left me high and dry, and she's had good excuses. But I want to go inside St. Charles Avenue Baptist Church on the day after Thanksgiving. One time, we went on the very first church we did. If we can get a key that she gives to you, and you can meet us there, I want to go inside 1 year, and I love to have her talk because she's a very interesting lady, and I will say that a woman preacher in the Baptist church may not be something that a lot of people expect to see, but she's got the backing of everybody in that church, and they have actually set some things that they do that are different from what you might expect from a Baptist church. Being located in New Orleans, I'll leave it at that. In terms of their participation, what they do, working for women's rights and things of that sort. It's been a bit of a breath of fresh air, and I would dearly love for her to talk to our group on one of those 10 commandments. And I don't know, maybe one of the good commandments, not one of the bad ones. I call the bad ones like adultery and covet thy neighbor's wife, because those are, for speaking before the scouts, it's a little difficult. Now how do you address the scouts about those issues? So I promise, if she talks, give her adultery, and I won't give her covet thy neighbor's wife. But I promise you that if she comes before us, she will want to do it every year, because it's really such an inspirational day. All right, enough of my plugs there. Tell me, Kathy, what else? Now that we got Road to Damascus out, we know everybody's going to be coming that can come possibly for the weekend. What else have you got on the horizon now? What else? I mean, this may be shop. You said maybe you might be going to some schools as well, maybe some churches.
We're bringing it to.
What about prisons? Are you thinking about bringing it to the prisons as well?
Maybe we're bringing it. It's really, speaking of the minds and hearts we're trying to reach, it's really people who aren't in prison that we want to, who have the power to vote, who have the power to speak up and change laws, and also have the power to welcome and formerly incarcerated people back into their homes and their lives, and to, people who are in prison don't make money. So, and there's a lot of stigma that comes with being in prison. So really encouraging people to stop this habit of thinking of people who are in prison as people who are deserving of punishment. So anyway, I gotta run.
I understand you do, and we're
gonna bring the show to Baton Rouge on March 11th. We're gonna perform it at the Red Shoes. March 18th, we're performing it in Lafayette, and then March 24th, the graduates are going to be performing at the Beyond the Bars conference at Columbia University in New York, and then March 30th through April 1st, I'm going to be doing the Road to Damascus, as told by grandmother to Little Red, at Union Seminary. That's connected to the Riverside Church on the Upper West Side in Manhattan.
All right.
So, here we go, y'all. We're taking it on the road.
Kathy Randels, thank you for being again with us. And again, I'll just close out, let everybody know that this is a work that you've done that really should be seen. And I hope that it has a long life, and that it does register with the people that you're trying to get it to register with. And we've only got about a minute left, so I'll wrap it up from here. And again, thank you very much for being here. I know you've got some urgent business to take care of.
Yes,
being a mother is sometimes a little difficult, but I understand what you're doing. All right, and my best. All right.
Thank you so much.
Again, Kathy Randels of ArtSpot Productions, again with us tonight, taking care of a little bit of business. Again, as you could probably see, that particular shot was done in the daytime because, yes, we recorded this previously, so we would be able to play it back for you at a reasonable hour when Kathy wasn't involved with her rehearsals, and the same thing with the earlier production that we had from Autophagie. The reason why we had them on earlier was essentially they would be traveling to New Orleans at the same time and would not be able to appear on our show at the right time. So again, that's pretty much for me right now. All we've had tonight on NOLA Theater Talk. Again, I appreciate you being with me. My name is Alan Smason. And again, check out all of our previous recordings on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, the Theater Criticism Folk Facebook group, as I mentioned, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, and my own YouTube channel. Trying to get ahead of myself there. Again, I hope that you will check out The Road to Damascus. And in the meantime, as always, I will see you at the theater.